Alright guys, I hope you're ready. I hope you guys are ready. Because I know I am. So big welcome to you all to our channel. We are Team Crushing the Meta. Today you are here with D-Boy and we have a video for you guys to talk about one of the strongest premium decks that Spike Brothers have ever had in the past. The crazy thing about this deck is that it's so flexible, it's so good in the early game, the late game, the first right, everything about the deck is strong. It has a very strong base, and from that it continue on getting stronger and stronger. So yeah, today we'll talk about that deck. Today we will showcase it and show you guys what it's capable of. Right, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. And yeah, so this will be a two-parted video. When the first part we'll talk about the deck, showcase the deck, and then the second part will show the combo. I will try not to make the deck too long, but still get something to drink, at least that. So we can start the video. So the important thing about this deck is to understand how flexible it is, and this guy by himself was able to create this deck. And the thing is, it's not an OP card, but it's very flexible. And because the deck already, the rush deck, the aggro deck for Spike, was already very strong, we relied on cards like Agrius and Vermios, but they were never so flexible as him because he could search you whatever you want from your deck. So for now, let's just get into it. So we'll start with a grade 3 lineup. So we have the 4 copies of Rising Nova. Rising Nova, creating the double markers is important. Force 1, Force 2 for your attacking turns, of course. And the second ability, him being able to copy 2 of your grade 3s, could also be very effective, especially if you go first. Then you could copy cards like Lucifer, you could copy cards like Agrius, Bullspike, and from that you could have a very strong first grade 3 turn. And because we're playing in premium, there are lots of decks that could not survive that turn, or even if they do, they end up with having to discard lots of the resources. So that's why the deck, even by going first, is still very, very, very strong. Alright, so next to Rising, as you can see, we play Lucifer. And it's up to you to play 3 or 4 copies of Lucifer. The other copy will be added to the Bull Spike. So you could play a combination of 4-3-2, or you could play a combination of 4-4-1. For me, I play the 4-4-1. And I will tell you why. The Agrius, I keep saying Agrius for some reason. The Bull Spike is only good if you go first. And if you go first, you could still call him with cards like Arona. So playing only the 1 copy of him in the deck is really not that bad. While Lucifer is in a whole another level. Lucifer is a card that you will need for your combo. And although you only need 1 in your deck, which is not much, it's still, in my opinion, it's good to play him at 4. But as I said, it's pretty much up to you. Most people think that, or feel while playing the deck, like the 4th one is not necessary, and if that's the case, I would just say, play the deck like this. Right? So we have 4, 3, 2, we need 1, right? So we play 1 copy of the new, beautiful grade 3. This coal-headed boy is good against cards like Honri. So because the deck is flexible on calling grade 3s with cards like Rona, you could call this in the early game to get rid of problematic cards that your opponent has on the field, but you could also call him during your finishing turn if they call the Honri. This is an effective card. It still costs you a Counterblast. Normally, Counterblast 2 it costs you, which I will explain later. But it still sometimes is effective because you could get rid of cards that your opponent could have on the field that could destroy your formation or stop your formation cards like Honolulu. Why do I say it costs you a count blast of 2 and not 1? Because normally when you call the Rona's ability will be able to count blast 1 and call the Lucifer, and the Lucifer will countercharge 1. So basically you count blast 1 and you get the counter blast back. But if you use a Rona counter blast 1, then you use him counter blast 2, so he costs you a counter blast of 2. Well, normally with the Lucifer you go back to 0. So pretty much up to you on the way you want to play it. You could still go to Lucifer, you could countercharge and still play around the Honolulu, but if you're at your starting of the turn, you could still do the combination even before you attack, and then later on, depending on how much counterblasters you have, you will benefit from using him. Again, it depends on your preference. If you don't want to play him, or you don't feel like the format or lots of people play Honolulu in their deck, you could just take him out to play another Lucifer, or if you already play the 4 Lucifer, you play the Pulse Spike. For me, I will start with a 4-3-2-1 formation, and from this formation I will move back or change it around to whatever I like the most. I'm giving you guys the starting deck list, and from this deck you could change it the way you want. For the grade 2s, we play 12 grade 2s, which are our biggest and most flexible lineup. We start with the 4 copies of Dudley Davy, then we add in 3 copies of Rona, 3 copies of Agile Fallback, 1 Fiona, and 1 Stun Gun. These seems like they're random, but they are not. Let me elaborate. Let me explain what do I mean here. So 7 right targets and a card that you want on your field. You basically, for your big combo, you need to have at least one of them on your field, or something like a Ambush Dexter. Ambush Dexter is also very important. They help you during your big turn, but they also help you in the early game. Riding into him, calling a Lucifer plus on the field, countercharge, getting her in the field, or riding into her means that you could get that bull spike that you need if you go first. Lots of things. Having the agile fallback in your deck is important during your big turn, or having him on the field is good as well. Calling in the early game is good. Again, the deck is very, very, very flexible and really, really strong. I didn't find it necessary to play a 4th copy of him, and I didn't find it necessary to play cards like Braki or cards like Panther. Although you could still exchange Fiona with Panther, but I like Fiona more because calling her at the end means that you could still power up one of your units, and you could leave her in the front row to mess with your opponent's formation on the next turn. Having her on hand is good as well. You only play 1 random copy to draw into her, but sometimes you do, and she will definitely be effective. You could add a 2nd copy of her in the deck, then you would need to take out a Rona to play her. But I don't want to make the deck too defensive, and the good thing about the deck is that it is very, very flexible. So Davy, Rona, you could change it around to play 4 Rona and 3 Davies, or you could play 4 Davies and 3 Rona. Davy is important to have as the last card left in your deck as you call, because he is of course able to call the Dudley Daisy, and the Daisy will be an extra attacker. So in this situation, during that big turn, Davy is better than Rona. Rona could be better in the early game as she could call the bull spike, while Davy could not. So that's the biggest difference. Her being able to boost is good, but during the big turn you could still give him boost, which will work as well, but depend on the situation. This, having him in the deck, is most of the time better. Having her in hand or in the early game is better. Alright. So now we continue on with the grade 1 lineup. The grade 1 lineup is simple but effective. I play 4 copies of Ambush Dexter, one of the most important cards you have in your deck. Then we add in 3 copies of Deadly Daisy, 3 copies of Gyroslinger, and 1 copy of Rogue Raider. Alright, we don't see any Acrobat Verdi, not the old one, not the new one. Reasons is that it doesn't matter. You're either Lucifer or Rising, you're good to go. Rising is better, but I don't want to focus too much on that. Having the Gyroslinger in the deck is also something that more and more people do not play. Gyroslinger is a card that could help you to get into the right cards if you do not have the right cards in your hand. So let's say you don't have a Rona or a Davy or even an Ambush Dexter, he could help you to get those cards to the field. Also, he is free as he costs you only a card from your hand, so during some big turns during your strides, like let's say if you use the skill of your Formido or Formios, the Gyroslinger will be more effective as he doesn't cost you Counterblast and he gives you Soul. And then you have your Counterblasters left for cards like Dexter or Rona or Davy. So it pretty much depends. I've seen people just don't play him, on also not playing this, and then playing the Acrobat Verdi. It's also possible, depending on what you want. Acrobat Verdi maybe makes the deck more consistent as you may ride into Rising more often and easier, but Gyroslinger is just, in my opinion, a better card suited for this deck. The 1 copy of Rogue Raider is good to have it. If you draw into him, you could call him. You could even call him from your deck if you want to, but him boosting your stands, like your instructors, your charge units, will sometimes make a big difference, as if you drive check and over trigger, you could give it to him. If you drive check the right cards, you could give it to him. And this boy mostly will be on the front row, as he is the one who will be the attacking unit and goes to the bottom of your deck, and you most of the time call him back as well. So it depends. There are some situations where the Rogue Raider is not necessary, but there are some situations with the right stride, the Rogue Raider will be even very, very, very effective if you use him with cards like Violent says. The only important thing that you have to keep in mind is that Rogue Raider needs Rising. Remember that. A Rogue Raider without Rising would not do anything. So if you ride into Lucifer or something else and you're thinking about using Rogue Raider, well, that doesn't work. So again, you could take this card out to play whatever you like. I would think I would take him out to play the 2nd copy of Fiona in the deck, as I want the deck to be a little bit more defensive. But for now, I'm experimenting a little bit with the Rogue Raider to see how good he is. But as I said, this would definitely be a card that I would take out, because again, he will not make that big of a difference in the most situations. So yeah, I will show you later on how the complete deck would look like with the changes, but first of all I wanted to show it to you. Alright, now we go to our triggers, and then we finally recap on how the deck would look like. So the triggers, we start, let's say grade 0s, we start with a starter. There is no reason to play any other starter. This boy is SP. This boy is good as he gives you soul, draw, and a quick shield some situations if you go 2nd. So yeah, really good. And then the overtrigger, we play the Dark State overtrigger, as in this deck we want to do as much damage as we can right from the start. There is no reason to wait. There is no reason to play cautiously. You will just go and destroy, and this overtrigger helps you in that sense. The trigger lineup actually is the same as the aggro deck. So you play the crit that helps you stride, you play the fronts that makes the deck crazy. It's basically the MVP of the deck with Dexter and the whole Dudley calling ability, but this is the boy which is the one who makes the big difference. Because the deck is so flexible, we don't really need to play the other Dudley heal or anything. We could just play the grade 3 heal. It's good to stride, good in the early game, good to have on the field to copy with Dexter to make the Lucifer and the Bull Spike for your first grade 3 turn if your opponent is on grade 2. And of course, we play the 4 PGs as being the draw PG. So I guess this is the best grade 0 lineup that you could play. Some people would say I would rather play the other overtrigger, as it is good as well, as it gives 2 units the 100 million power, and that could be more effective, especially during your big turn. But again, pretty much up to you. I just like the Dark State one more. Alright, so let's recap. So we've talked about the triggers, we talked about everything, and now let's go back and show the deck as in a whole, to then talk a little bit about the other options. But before we do that, we need to go to the stride deck, because the stride deck will not change that much. So first, the ace of the deck of your strides, we play the 2 copies of the new boy. Is it necessary to play a 4th one? I don't feel like it is, but I could see people playing a 3rd one. So for me, 2 is more than enough. If the second one could not finish it, then you would rather go to something different. We still play the 2 copies of Agrius. I did not find situations where Agrius is better than him, but he's just in there for now, to see if there will be moments where I would need him. But to be honest, this card will not be played that much anymore, because this is just better. Then we play the 2 copies of Violence Ace. He's not only a card that draws you cards, but he's also good because of his second ability that you could call, and he could power up cards like Frog Raider. That would mean that you will have a very strong booster that you could keep restanding if you call instructors. So yeah, a very important card. 2 copies of Firmius. I've seen people play him at 1. The reason why we play this boy at 2 is Order Colony. Order Colony is really not good against this deck, because this deck will rush them to hell, and this deck still has Firmius. So from that moment on, you create lots of soul, and you will be, with these 2 boys, you will be destroying their ass. Then we play 1 copy of the GBA. There is no reason not to play him. And to add into the stride deck, we play E1 Dust and E1 Formido. Dust and Formido, of course, very important. Dust is good because sometimes your opponent plays a deck where there are G strides, or I mean G units, GGuards. If their GGuards could ruin your formation and you know they have the heals, you could choose to go to Dust, and Dust could finish them off. If you don't finish them off, you could still play V this deck. I mean, Rising with the Bull Spike and with the Lucifer, the deck is still very good. Formido at 1 is necessary. Playing against Nubitama, playing against Meikoni, this card could be very effective. And also the Field Retirement, the Soul is good. I played this combo so many times with while playing as Order Colony. This 2 is just perfect. Okay, what could you change about this lineup? The 1 boy that you would change is Agrius. You will take Agrius out, and the card that you would play is actually a Old Stride, which is not Violence Ace, but Miracle Ace. I have him in my SP binder. Do you want me to get him? Why not? Give me a second. That was fast. So you could play Miracle Ace. If you don't know what Miracle Ace does, basically he was one of the cards that worked very well with the charge mechanic. So you count +1, you choose a copy of him from your G-Zone and you flip it face up. So that's why you need the 2 copies, the same as Agrius. And then he will get the following ability, which is when your rearguard is put into your deck, you choose 1 of your units and it gets power +5k until the end of turn. Then you have the GB3 ability, and that's where things get interesting. You Soul Blast 2. When your rearguard is put into your deck, you may pay the cost. If you do, you choose up to 1 card from your hand and you call it to an open rearguard. So you would say he is as good as Formido. Formido is just easier to use. The good thing about this guy is he doesn't talk about you having to have a marker on a circle. He also power up your units, which would mean that you could power up cards like Frog Raider. But in my opinion, it's not necessary to play him. So that's why I don't, because I find this boy just better and easier to use, and I didn't find situations where I thought he was necessary. Other options that you could play, you could also play 2 copies of Supernova. The reason why you played Supernova in the past, because Supernova didn't cost Counterblast. Well, New Strike doesn't cost Counterblast, so you could play that. And of course, last but not least, you could also play a Picaro. A Dirty Picaro is also very good, as in he could call you a full field. And sometimes if you lose your whole field, but you have enough Counterblasters, he could pretty much create you a whole new field with like 2 or even 3 instructors, and with that you could just finish your opponent from that. So playing a copy of him in your deck is good as well, and then you could add in another copy of him if you really want to take Agrias out. Pretty much up to you. For now, as I said, I will keep the deck as it is, and we will see how things will change. Alright, so taking out the strides, as I said, this will not change much, but the main deck will change, which I will show you the changes. And of course, for the GGuards, we play the 2 copies of the beautiful SP Linus, one Gus, one of the new one of the new GGuards, and the one Desmio. So these 2 are very important, as in they recycle your units. And this deck you could choose to countercharge at the end of your combo, so playing the counterblast is easy, and getting the shield value is good, because sometimes you have your Dexters, your Daisies, your starter put into the drop zone. All of them are 10k shields, which will go back to your deck, but most of the time you will recycle the units that you need. This boy helps you to get to the GP8 if you want to, and this boy of course helps you to be able to just guard some big attacks and maybe flip G-Zone if you need. But basically most of the time she is good if you have the Counterblast to use her. I didn't find it necessary to play a second copy of her in the deck. I would rather play the Desmio. Desmio always come in handy in some situations where you just want to save one of your Vanguards, or it's very important to have a Vanguard on the field, or it's important that your opponent could not target that Vanguard. Alright, so let me put everything on the beautiful playmat and we go back and recap on how the deck looks like. So that would also be the end of the video before we get to the second part, which is the combo video. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about the deck. So this is the complete deck. First thing, let's take out the triggers, because as I said, the trigger lineup will not change. So it's the 4 heal, it's the 4 draw, it's the 4 stand, the 3 crits that you could stride with. The over trigger is the only card that you could change. Depend on if you're playing the crit elemental over trigger, the starter will stay the same. We'll leave the over trigger there because you could change it. Okay, the grade 3 lineup, as I said, I'm playing the 4-3-2-1. If you want to take him out, pretty much up to you. You could add another copy of Lucifer, or you could add in a grade 2. That would work as well. So this card is, I would say, up to you to change it the way you like. I tend to be reckless with Lucifer, to just drop him to stride with. I ride into him, I call him in the early game, let him die. So that's why normally I play 4 Lucifers. But if you play 3, you could also be smart about when to call him on the field. So you could attack with him and put him back to your deck, and that would be the Lucifer that you keep calling, because actually you only need 1 for your combo to keep calling. So 3 Lucifer should be more than enough, but if you feel like you need the 4th one, then it's important to take this boy or these out, to at least one out to play another Lucifer. Again, pretty much up to you. I like playing the 4 Lucifer, but I will play the deck as it is, and I will change it in the future the way that I like. 2 Bull Spike, more than enough. Even 1 is enough, because as I said, you only need 1 for that turn that you go first, that game that you go first, that you have Rona, that you have him. You could call him to the field and benefit a lot from multi-attacking that turn. And remember that Nova still could copy those 2, right? If you copy those 2, that's also perfect. That's why I think that the deck will pretty much change to this in the future. But again, as I said, I want to have the extra option to get rid of Honely. But it's very situational. It's really, really very, very, very situational. In most cases, this would be your preferred grade 3 lineup. But again, up to you. The grade 2 lineup will be like this. 4, at least 2, at least 3, at least 1. So the 2 cards that are flexible right here is Fiona and Rona. You could take these 2 out to play cards like Panther. You could take these 2 out and the Frog Raider to play 3 Brackies. That would also work. Again, up to you. For me, I would leave it at this, because Jumbo the Stun Gun, of course, very important. As I said, you will not take him out. But Fiona, even as at 1, she is very, very good, because you could put her on the field if you want to. For the Great Wild lineup, Dexter, important to have at 4. Gyro Slinger, in my opinion, very important to have at 3. Daisy, you could play 2, but then you're taking risks, the same as Lucifer. That's why I prefer to play her at 3. Frog Raider, it's up to you. Player preference. You could pretty much take the Frog Raider out to play something different. Add in another grade 2, add in a grade 3, add in whatever you like. There's also another card that you could add to the deck, which is Honley himself. Because the new stride is so flexible, you could also end your turn with having a Fiona and a Honley on the field. You could do that if you want to. That's also very good if you think that you could not finish them on that turn. If they get like an overtrigger and before you attack with your Vanguard, then you'd be like, okay, what now? Now you could attack with your Vanguard and then you could call a Fiona and a Honley, and with that you could maybe stop their next turn. So yeah, the deck is again very flexible. For now, I'm leaving the Frog Raider in because there are strides that work really good with the Frog Raider. But I think it's not necessary to have the Frog Raider in the deck. And if you take the Frog Raider out, then you would ask, what do you want to put in the deck? My advice to you would be play a second copy of Fiona. So this is how the deck would look like. The overtrigger, up to you. Both of them are good. There are some situations where this overtrigger is better when you drive ticket in the early game. During grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 turn, this would be better. But if you, during your stride turn, the better option would be the Cray Elemental one, because you could give both of the attackers the extra power, and that's more effective, right? So the main deck, without the triggers and the stride, would be in most situations something like this. You have lots of grade 2s, you have enough grade 1s to ride into. 10 or 11 is good. Playing less than 10 could be problematic. If you feel like you need another option to play in the deck except Gyro Slinger, remember that William is also a very good card. He's a good right target. He's good to move the markers with some of your strides during your big turn, the first grade 3 turn. If you don't have Bull Spike, William would work as well. So yeah, enough options. The basics will be something like this, without lots of extra cards that could make it difficult for you to play. You could even do it like this. This would be the build that you start with, and from this build you could change it to the way that you like. And that's actually it for this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope that you guys learn again something from it. If you have any comments, well, there is the comment section, so let us know. If you have trouble with the deck, playing it, building it, let me know. I would be more than happy to help you out. So yeah, that's it for us. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for tuning in our channel. Don't forget to subscribe. As I said, comment if you have a comment, and share the video. That help us a lot as well. So till next time.